And we are live. Welcome to Olivia's Stories, ladies and gentlemen. Story number 1.
Hey Reddit, longtime lurker, first-time poster. Never thought I'd be sharing my own story here, but life has a way of throwing you curveballs. I guess I just need to get this off my chest. So, a bit of background. I'm Theo, and my wife Alara, and I had been counting down to our silver anniversary. 25 years. It's a long time, right? We've had our ups and downs like any couple, but our bond, it always felt special. Now Alara had this dream. Ever since we were young and broke, leafing through glossy travel magazines together in our tiny first apartment, she'd always pause at photos of Fiji, white sandy beaches, clear blue water, those little huts over the ocean. She'd get this faraway look in her eyes, and I could tell it was more than just a vacation spot for her. It was a dream. With our 25th year coming up, I thought, this is it. This is the time to make that dream come true. I wanted to see that sparkle in her eyes again, that genuine surprise. So, I started planning secretly. It took me months, saving a little on the side, researching the best resorts, and finding the perfect secluded beachfront villa. I even spoke to a local Fijian band to play our song as we arrived. It was going to be picture perfect. My heart raced every time I thought of the moment I'd reveal the surprise. Just imagining her face lighting up made all the sneaking around, the white lies about where the money was going, and the late nights of planning worth it. It was my way of showing her, 25 years, and I'd still move mountains for you. So, with everything set, I hid the tickets inside a scrapbook I'd made, our life story and photos, starting from our awkward first date to now. The last page was going to be a picture of Fiji with the caption, "The next chapter." I thought it was cheesy, but in a good way. And as D-Day approached, I was buzzing with excitement. But, as you've probably guessed, things didn't go as smoothly as I'd hoped. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. That part comes later. Edit. Thanks for the awards, kind strangers. I'll update you all with part 2 soon. Hey again, Reddit. Wow. I wasn't expecting such a response to my last post. I appreciate all the support, truly. It's helping more than I thought it would. Okay, deep breath. Here goes part 2. Work has always been my escape. When things at home got tough, or I just needed to clear my head, diving into a project helped. I'm in software development, and my team is a close-knit bunch. We've pulled too many all-nighters and tackled too many impossible tasks not to be. There's Bryn, our witty and sometimes too blunt lead designer. There's Jana, the team's caffeine-fueled coder. A few others, and then there's me. It was a Thursday, I think. One of those days where lunchtime comes and goes and you don't even notice. We were in the break room, me, Bryn, and a couple of others. I was talking about how Alara had been working late a lot recently and how I missed our evening walks. Bryn, sipping his overpriced latte, just casually said, "Speaking of late nights, it's weird, isn't it?" I looked up, a bit confused. "What do you mean?" Bryn shrugged. Alara and Lucan, they sure spend a lot of time together. More than just colleague time, if you catch my drift. He had this smirk, like he was in on some inside joke I wasn't privy to. Now I knew Lucan. He was part of Alara's department. We'd hung out a few times at company parties. Seemed like an all-right guy. Alara mentioned him now and then, usually work stuff. They collaborated on projects, friends, right? But Bryn's comment, it just lingered, like a tiny annoying mosquito buzz that you can't quite locate. I tried to brush it off. "They're just friends, probably working on some big project," I said, forcing a laugh. Bryn just raised an eyebrow. "If you say so, man." I wished then that he was just being his usual, trying to get a rise out of people self. But as the days went on, I noticed things. Whispers around the office, glances exchanged. Alara becoming a bit more distant, her phone always face down. Had I been so wrapped up in my plans that I missed something so significant happening right under my nose? The seeds of doubt, as you guys rightly pointed out in the comments, were planted. And believe me, they began to grow, fast. Until next time, Reddit. Part 3 is a doozy. Edit. To those saying Bryn might have his own motives, I never thought of it that way. But trust me, the story only gets more tangled from here. Back again, Reddit. I've been going through your comments from the last post, and it's both comforting and horrifying to see that some of you have experienced similar situations. Let's dive into where the real unease began. Remember when things in life were simple? Like when your biggest concern was whether you wanted pepperoni or cheese on your pizza? Yeah, those days felt far behind me. The house that once echoed with laughter and shared secrets became thick with tension. It felt like trying to breathe underwater. Alara's phone seemed like it was always buzzing. Late-night messages, early morning pings, more than I'd ever noticed before. And each time she'd subtly angle the screen away from me, or exit rooms when taking calls. The once open book of our life together was slowly being replaced by locked diaries. One evening, trying to rekindle our old habits, I suggested, "How about we watch that new movie you've been talking about?" She looked distracted, fingers tapping away at her phone. "Who's texting so late?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just work stuff," she murmured, her gaze never leaving the screen. I took a deep breath. "Is it Lucan?" The way she looked up, eyes wide and a bit defensive, said more than her words did. "Why would you ask that? It's just some project updates," she said, a tad too quickly, before changing the topic to something about the neighbor's cat. Late nights at the office became the norm. Alara, who used to rush home to our cozy dinner and movie nights, started coming home long after I'd fallen asleep. When she did come to bed, she'd turn away, diving deep into her thoughts, miles away from where I was. Remember Bryn's little hint? I felt like a fool for not taking it seriously. Every fiber of my being screamed that something was off, but I tried to tell myself that it was just work stress or maybe the looming anniversary was making her anxious. Yeah, I know, denial isn't just a river in Egypt. I confided in my best friend Jackson. We'd been bros since college. He'd been my wingman when I first met Alara. Over a couple of beers, I laid it all out. He listened, deep in thought, and finally said, "Man, you need to talk to her. Straight up. No games." I knew he was right. But was I ready for the answers? Hey, Reddit fam. I've been dreading this part, but the story wouldn't be complete without it. So, here's how the floor fell out from under my world. It was a Saturday. Our home, usually alive with weekend energy, was silent except for the hum of the air conditioner. Alara was in the shower, and I was lounging on the couch, diving into some much-needed gaming to distract myself from, well, everything. As I was reaching for my controller, I saw Alara's purse topple from the counter. Out spilled its contents: her wallet, some lipstick, random receipts, and a folded piece of paper. Normally, I'd never invade her privacy, but something about that paper caught my eye. The handwriting wasn't hers. I picked it up and noticed it was addressed to her, from Lucan. "Alara," it began. My heart raced as I read on. "Every stolen moment with you makes me feel alive. Our secret meetings at the park, the thrill of hiding from the world, it's intoxicating. When I'm near you, everything else fades. How do you feel when we're together?" I felt like someone had punched the air out of my lungs. Each word was like a dagger, stabbing at my very core. I read and reread the letter, hoping I had somehow misunderstood, hoping it was some cruel joke. But it wasn't. The undeniable truth was there, in black and white. A whirlwind of emotions hit me. Anger, sadness, disbelief. The room seemed to spin. Was this really happening? Were the last 25 years just meaningless? I heard the water stop, signaling the end of Alara's shower. Panic set in. Do I confront her now? Do I wait? Is this the moment our quarter-century together comes crashing down? I quickly placed the letter back amidst the scattered contents of her purse, making it seem undisturbed. I needed time to think. As she walked into the room, I could barely look at her. Every smile, every touch, every memory was now tainted with doubt. But I kept my poker face, not letting on about my discovery. That night, lying beside her, I felt more alone than ever. Sleep eluded me. The haunting words from that letter replayed in my mind, each iteration causing a fresh wave of pain. I'll leave this update here, Reddit. It's hard to relive, but you've been a great source of support. I promise part 5 is coming soon, and you won't believe the confrontation. Edit. For those of you suggesting I should have confronted her right away, believe me, I wanted to. But sometimes, the weight of reality holds you back. Hey Reddit. First, I want to thank you all for the kind messages and advice on my previous posts. They've been a beacon in a very dark time. So, here's how the confrontation went down. I spent days in a haze after finding that letter. Every interaction with Alara felt like a charade as I grappled with the anger and hurt boiling inside me. I played the scenarios over and over in my mind. But one evening, as we sat across from each other at dinner, the weight of the silence was too much to bear. With the letter clenched in my hand, I looked at Alara, took a deep breath, and asked, "What's going on between you and Lucan?" Her eyes widened in shock. For a split second, I thought I saw guilt flash across her face, but she quickly masked it. "What do you mean?" she replied, feigning innocence. I placed the letter on the table. "This, Alara. What is this?" She stared at the letter, her face turning pale. "Theo, it's not what it looks like," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "Then please," I said, my voice trembling with emotion, "tell me what it is." For a moment, she was silent, collecting herself. We just became close, you know? We shared things, thoughts, feelings, but it wasn't supposed to be this way. I felt a sharp sting of betrayal. Shared feelings? What about our feelings? Our memories? Did they mean nothing to you? Alara cried, "I never meant to hurt you. It was a mistake." But her words felt empty, especially when juxtaposed with the raw emotions in Lucan's letter. She tried to gaslight me further. "We're just really close friends, Theo. You're blowing this out of proportion. You always get so jealous." Close friends? After everything I had seen and felt? "Alara, don't insult my intelligence. Close friends don't write letters like this." She looked defeated, avoiding my eyes. "I'm so sorry, Theo," she whispered. But was she sorry for the act or sorry for being caught? The line between reality and deception had blurred so much, I couldn't tell anymore. That night, our house, which had been a sanctuary of love and trust, felt like a prison of doubts and broken dreams. I'll continue soon, Reddit. Writing this out is therapeutic in a way, but also so damn painful. I need a break. All right, Reddit, I'm back. Buckle up, because this part is, well, just read. The day after the confrontation with Alara, I felt lost. Part of me was desperate for an explanation, something more than Alara's half-hearted apologies. Lucan was the other side of this twisted equation. I needed to hear his side of the story. After some digging, I managed to find his contact. We agreed to meet at a cafe in downtown Boston, away from prying eyes. I remember the place was buzzing with activity, people chatting, the sound of coffee machines hissing, the clinking of cutlery. Yet, in my world, everything was silent except for the throbbing pain in my chest. Lucan looked uneasy when I walked in. As we sat down, he took a deep breath. "Before you say anything," he started, "I want to apologize." My face was a mask of anger. "Go on," I replied curtly. He sighed, looking down at his hands. This started as a stupid game. Some friends and I, we had this sick challenge." He hesitated. "To see who could get close to someone's wife, to see if we could steal them away." I stared, my jaw dropping. "You're telling me my life, my love, was just a pawn in your twisted game?" Lucan nodded, shame evident in his eyes. "Yes, but it spiraled, Theo. It became something more than just a game. Feelings got involved. It got complicated." Rage bubbled up inside me. "So, my 25 years with Alara was just a joke to you? Some competition?" He flinched. "I never meant for it to go this far. I should have stopped. But, as I said, feelings got involved." "Feelings?" I spat. "What about my feelings? Alara's feelings?" He looked down, defeated. "I can't justify what I did. I messed up." The enormity of what he confessed was too much to handle. My wife wasn't just having an affair. It was a challenge for him, a game. A part of me wanted to lash out, to shout, to vent all my pain. But another part was just numb. I got up, leaving Lucan in the cafe, struggling with his guilt, or whatever it was he felt. The days following the cafe revelation were the darkest I've ever had to endure. Everywhere I turned, the weight of betrayal pressed down on me. But with that pain came a fierce determination. I was done being the victim in their twisted game. It was time to flip the script. I crafted a plan, one that'd serve them a cold dish of revenge. I called Alara, my voice purposefully cheerful. How about a pre-anniversary dinner? A fresh start for both of us. I'd like Lucan to be there too. Let's clear the air. She sounded relieved, perhaps thinking this was a sign I was ready to move past the betrayal. That sounds lovely, Theo, she replied hesitantly. The night of the dinner, I booked the private dining room at Boston's most upscale restaurant. I wanted the setting to scream special occasion. The irony wasn't lost on me. As the night approached, my stomach was a mix of nerves and anticipation. They both arrived, looking awkward. I greeted them with a smile, trying to keep my face neutral. Thanks for coming, I said, ushering them to their seats. They exchanged anxious glances but said nothing. After we ordered, I decided to set the stage. I raised my glass. To new beginnings, I toasted. They raised their glasses hesitantly. As the night went on, I regaled them with stories of our past, deliberately choosing the most intimate moments Alara and I shared. Every anecdote was a reminder of the life they were trying to tear apart. The climax came with dessert. I had prepared a special video montage. A trip down memory lane, I announced, hitting play. The screen showcased happy moments, our wedding, holidays, the birth of our children. Their faces grew paler with each scene. The video ended with the text, 25 years. Was it all a game? Silence. Their faces were a picture of shock and guilt. Alara's eyes brimmed with tears. Theo, I held up a hand to stop her. I brought you both here not for reconciliation, but for you to truly grasp the gravity of what you did. This, I gestured to the screen, is what you tried to destroy. Lucan was the first to break. I'm so sorry, Theo. He looked genuinely remorseful. I nodded coldly. Enjoy the rest of your evening. With that, I left, leaving them to grapple with their conscience. Reddit, the revenge might not have been explosive, but seeing their faces, knowing they felt even a fraction of the pain I felt, was enough for me. More updates to come. Hey again, Reddit. I left out a major detail in my last post, but I needed some time to gather my thoughts before sharing this bombshell. So, here goes. Before the dinner, while my anger was fresh from the cafe meeting with Lucan, I had an idea. I sent him a text, acting as though I was more understanding, trying to see things from his perspective. Surprisingly, he responded, and we had a lengthy conversation. Unknown to him, I recorded the entire exchange. At the pre-anniversary dinner, right after the video montage ended, and the room was heavy with guilt and remorse, I took out my phone. I announced, "There's something else I'd like everyone to hear." I played the recording. Lucan's voice filled the room, detailing their twisted game, his competition with friends, how it all started as a fun challenge and spiraled into something deeper. The raw confession, every word dripping with remorse and guilt, echoed through the silent room. All eyes turned to Lucan. His confident demeanor had vanished, replaced by sheer embarrassment. He looked like he wished the ground would swallow him whole. Alara, on the other hand, was in shock. It seemed she was unaware of the game Lucan and his friends had played. The look she gave him was a mix of hurt and betrayal. She had been played, just like me. "Lucan? Why?" she whispered, voice shaky. Lucan, for once, was speechless. The weight of the truth hung heavily in the room. I took a deep breath. I wanted all of you to know the truth, to understand the gravity of the game they played with our lives, I said, looking directly at Lucan. The rest of the evening was a blur. People were outraged, whispering among themselves. Some counseled Alara, while others cast judgmental glances at Lucan. The unity in their betrayal had shattered, and the tables had turned. I left the restaurant with a sense of closure. While the pain was far from over, unveiling the truth was a step toward healing. All right, Reddit, another update. This one is heavy. A couple of days after the dinner reveal, I found myself holding the 2 tickets to Fiji. A trip that was supposed to be a celebration of our love, now a painful reminder of what had been lost. My heart ached thinking of the surprise I'd planned, the dreams shattered. I called Alara, asking to meet. She hesitated, but eventually agreed. We decided on a small park near our home, where we'd taken our kids countless times when they were younger, a place filled with memories of simpler times. She was already there when I arrived, looking forlorn. The vibrant, confident woman I fell in love with seemed to have faded away. Without a word, I took out the tickets, holding them in front of her. Her eyes widened in realization. "Fiji?" she whispered. I nodded, fighting back tears. This was supposed to be our special surprise, a reminder of our love. But things have changed. My voice cracked. It doesn't mean what it once did. She looked at the tickets, tears streaming down her face. "Theo, I held up a hand to stop her. I thought about going alone, but then I figured you might want to go. Maybe Lucan would like to join you." The words came out colder than I intended, but I was running on raw emotion. I handed her one of the tickets. She took it, her hand trembling. The weight of the symbolic gesture wasn't lost on either of us. "I'm sorry," she whispered, but it felt empty. Everything did. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. "Maybe this trip will give you clarity, Alara. Maybe it'll help you find whatever it is you're looking for." I turned away, leaving her standing there amidst the memories of our past. The Fiji trip, once a symbol of love, was now a parting gift of sorts. Hey again, Reddit. It's Theo. I'm typing this from a small cafe in Fiji, overlooking the most pristine beach you can imagine. As the waves roll in, I can't help but reflect on everything that has happened. Fiji. I had envisioned this trip so differently in my mind. Warm laughter, the intertwining of hands, and loving glances shared between Alara and me. But the reality, it's just me, the vast ocean, and a heart trying to piece itself back together. The beauty here is unparalleled. Every morning I watch the sunrise, the sky painted in shades of pink and gold, yet there's a void, an emptiness that can't be filled by even the most breathtaking vistas. Each sunset reminds me that another day has passed, another day where the wound is still fresh. I've met many people here, from all walks of life. A couple celebrating their honeymoon, a family on a holiday, and an old man, Mr. Patea, who's lived in Fiji his entire life. It was him who shared a piece of wisdom that resonated deeply. Sometimes the waves crash hard, young man, but the ocean always finds its calm again. At first I thought he was talking about the sea, but as days went by, I understood. It was about life, about love, about the ups and downs we all face. Alara and Lucan never crossed paths with me here, and while a part of me dreaded running into them, another part, perhaps masochistically, hoped to. I wanted to see if they had found happiness in their betrayal, if it was worth it. But as the days passed, the pain started to ebb, replaced by a realization. Our love story, as beautiful as it was, had reached its final chapter. Trust, the very foundation of our relationship, was shattered, and no trip, no amount of time, could piece it back to its original form. Tomorrow, I head back home, but not to the same life. I've decided to start anew, a fresh beginning, away from the shadows of the past. Where? I haven't decided yet, but wherever it is, I'll carry the lessons of Fiji with me. So, Reddit, this might be my last update on this chapter of my life. Thanks for being with me through the highs and lows. The journey's far from over, but at least I know I'm not walking it alone. Edit. To those who messaged with kind words, stories, and advice, thank you. It means more than words can express.
Story number 2.
Hey Reddit, I never thought I'd be posting here, especially about something this personal. But here I am. I guess I just need to get this off my chest. You ever have one of those mornings where you wake up and something just feels off? That was me on that fateful day. The birds outside our window were still chirping. The golden hue of dawn was peeking through the blinds, but something just wasn't right. My eyelids felt heavy as I blinked the sleep away, adjusting to the semi-darkness of our bedroom. Stretching, I turned to where my wife, Serafina, usually lay curled up beside me. But instead of the sight I was accustomed to, her wrapped up in her baby blue nightgown. I saw her oddly half-dressed. It looked like she had started to change into her day clothes but gave up midway. Her blouse was on, but it wasn't buttoned all the way, and her jeans were tangled around one ankle. Her other foot still had a sock on it. I blinked a few times, wondering if I was still dreaming. "Sarah?" I mumbled, voice groggy from sleep. She seemed a bit startled, almost guilty, as she looked at me. Her usually vibrant hazel eyes looked a bit distant. "Oh, hey," she replied, her voice sounding a bit out of breath. "Why are you dressed like that?" I asked, trying to sit up, the sheets wrapped around me. She hesitated for just a second, but that second was enough to set off alarm bells in my mind. "It was just really warm last night, you know? I thought maybe if I changed, I'd cool down a bit, but I got tired and decided to just lie down for a bit." I frowned, trying to process her words. We had air conditioning, and it was always at a comfortable temperature. In fact, she'd often tell me she felt cold during the night, so this didn't add up. "You sure you're okay?" I pressed, feeling a strange knot of worry forming in my stomach. She forced a laugh, her eyes darting away for a second. "Yeah, just one of those nights, I guess. You know me, always overthinking stuff." I wanted to believe her, really I did. And maybe if it had been any other day, I would have just taken her word for it and moved on. But something, some gut feeling, told me this was just the tip of the iceberg. For a moment, we just looked at each other. There was a tension in the air, one I couldn't quite put my finger on. But instead of pushing further, I decided to let it go, thinking maybe I was just overreacting. "All right," I said slowly. "Just let me know if something's up, okay?" She nodded, giving me a weak smile. "Always." I turned back around, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. My gut told me something was off, but I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was just being paranoid. Oh, how I wish I had listened to that nagging feeling. Edit. Wow, didn't expect this to blow up. Thanks for the awards, kind strangers. We'll update soon. It was a typical Tuesday afternoon. Work had been grueling that day, so I decided to take a break at my favorite downtown Chicago cafe, Bean and Whistle. The cozy ambiance and top-tier coffee always managed to soothe my mind, even on the worst days. Grabbing a corner seat by the window, I settled down with my laptop, a steaming mug of cappuccino, and a blueberry muffin. The warm, rich aroma filled my senses, and I felt the stress melting away. That is, until I overheard the conversation. The cafe was relatively quiet, with just a few other patrons around, their murmured conversations creating a soft background hum. But 2 tables away, a couple of guys were in a deep discussion, their voices a bit too loud for the setting. I tried to focus on my work, but the name Serafina caught my ear. That's not exactly a common name, and it immediately piqued my interest. "I'm telling you, man, Drax and Serafina have been sneaking around at night," one guy, with a scruffy beard and glasses, was saying. His friend, a taller dude with tattoos peeking out from under his shirt sleeve, laughed. "Man, if anyone found out, there'd be some serious drama." Scruffy Beard leaned in. I mean, I couldn't believe it either, but my buddy saw them at Moonlit Lagoon last week, all cozy and stuff. I felt like someone had punched me in the gut. My heart raced, and my palms started to sweat. The name, the mention of secret meetings. It was too much to be a coincidence. But then, what were the odds? Chicago was a big city after all. Maybe there was another Serafina out there, involved with someone named Drax. Trying to calm myself down, I took a deep breath and mustered up the courage to approach them. "Hey, sorry to intrude," I began, trying to keep my voice casual. "But I couldn't help but overhear you talking about Serafina. Mind if I ask how you know her?" Both guys looked up, surprised. Scruffy Beard raised an eyebrow. "Why? Who's asking?" "My wife's name is Serafina," I replied, trying to keep the trembling out of my voice. "Just curious." Tattoo guy snorted. "Small world, huh? But bro, there are probably tons of Serafinas in Chicago. Don't think too much about it." "Yeah, man," Scruffy Beard added. "And besides, the Serafina we're talking about is into some artsy stuff like painting or something." "Does that sound like your wife?" Trying to put on a brave face, I laughed it off. "Nope, not at all. My Serafina can't even draw a stick figure. Thanks, guys." Returning to my table, I tried to shake off the unease, but it clung to me like a second skin. I wanted to believe it was a different Serafina, but a nagging doubt had settled in my heart. The events of the morning and this random cafe conversation were too coincidental, and the storm clouds of suspicion began to gather in my mind. Edit. Seriously, this week has been a roller coaster. Thanks for sticking around, folks. I'm still processing everything. We'll keep you updated. I've always been a man of logic, the kind who needs evidence before making any decisions. And that's what led me to our home's security system late that night. The uncertainty, the nagging doubts. I had to put them to rest, either to confirm my worst fears or to clear my wife's name. I told myself it would give me peace of mind. Booting up the system, I rewound the footage from the past week. Each night played out in fast-forward, familiar scenes of Serafina and me coming home from work, ordering takeout, watching movies, the usual couple stuff. But then, 2 nights ago, the scene shifted. It was around 1:30 a.m., a time when the world outside was still, and most were deep in sleep. The infrared camera caught a shadow moving towards our front door. The figure was tall, slender, wearing a cap that hid most of his face, but not enough. As he moved closer, the side profile became clearer, and my heart sank. Drax. I had seen his face once or twice in Serafina's old college photos. I never paid him much attention. To me, he was just a part of her past. But now, here he was, sneaking into my home in the dead of night. The footage showed him typing in the passcode to our front door, a passcode only family knew. The door opened, and he disappeared inside. My hands clenched into fists, nails digging into my palms. The clock ticked on, turning minutes into hours, and just before dawn he emerged, looking around cautiously before slipping away into the shadows. I felt a cold numbness spread through me. The weight of the betrayal was almost too much to bear. The pieces of the puzzle now fit together in a clear, painful picture. The half-dressed morning, the overheard conversation at the cafe, and now this footage. It all pointed to the reality I was reluctant to accept. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the monitor, the only light. Feelings of sadness, anger, and disbelief waged a war inside of me. The woman I loved, the one I trusted more than anyone else, had betrayed me in the deepest way possible. I took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside. One thing was clear: I needed answers, and I was determined to get them. Edit. This has been the hardest thing I've ever had to write. Every moment feels surreal, like I'm in some twisted nightmare. Thanks for the outpouring of support. I never imagined sharing this here would help, but reading your comments gives me strength. More updates to come. That evening was probably the longest I'd ever endured. I paced our living room, waiting for Serafina to return from work. My mind was a hurricane of emotions, swirling with anger, pain, and a tiny glimmer of hope that maybe, just maybe, there was a reasonable explanation for all this. When the front door finally opened, I took a deep breath, attempting to steady my racing heart. Serafina walked in, her usual radiant smile on her face. "Hey, love," she greeted, but her smile faded the moment she saw my expression. "Jalen, what's wrong?" Without a word, I turned on the TV and played the security footage. The color drained from her face as she watched Drax enter and then leave our house. The silence that followed was deafening. I finally spoke up, my voice trembling with a mix of anger and sadness. "Sarah, how could you?" She looked like she was on the verge of tears. "Jalen, it's not what you think. Drax is just an old friend." "An old friend who sneaks into our house in the middle of the night?" I retorted, my patience wearing thin. She took a deep breath. "He was going through a tough time and needed someone to talk to. I didn't think you'd understand, so I didn't tell you." "That's your excuse? Secrets? Lies? In our own home? Sarah?" The weight of the betrayal was suffocating. She looked hurt. "I can't believe you're accusing me of this. After all we've been through, you really think I'd do something like that?" I felt cornered. "You're turning this on me, after what I just saw." Tears streamed down her face. "I never thought I'd see the day where my own husband wouldn't trust me. Drax needed help, and I was there for him as a friend. Nothing more." The room felt like it was closing in on me. I wanted to believe her, but the evidence, the secrets, the whispers, it was all too much. So you expect me to just accept this? To believe it was all innocent? She sobbed. I just wish you'd trust me. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension and unsaid words. Here we were, two people who promised to stand by each other, now miles apart in trust and understanding. The chasm between us felt insurmountable. The following morning was a blur of emotions. I had hardly slept, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on me. My morning coffee had lost its flavor, every sip a bitter reminder of the turbulence in my life. I decided to get some fresh air, hoping it would clear my mind. As I stepped out onto our porch, I noticed Luna, our neighbor, anxiously waiting by her front door. Luna was an enigmatic figure in our neighborhood, known for her love for plants and her strikingly beautiful blue-gray eyes. We had exchanged pleasantries a few times, but nothing more. Seeing me, she hurried over, her usually composed demeanor replaced with one of urgency. "Jalen," she began, her voice soft. I think you should see this." She handed me a small envelope. Inside were a series of photographs, each one like a dagger to my heart. They showed Drax and Serafina together, outside my house on various nights. Their body language spoke volumes, suggesting a familiarity that went beyond mere friendship. "I noticed him visiting when you were on your business trips," Luna admitted, her eyes filled with sympathy. "I thought you should know." I struggled to find words. "Luna? Why?" She sighed. "I've been through betrayal, Jalen. I wouldn't wish it on anyone, especially not someone living right next door. You deserve the truth." Feeling a mix of gratitude and anguish, I mumbled, "Thank you, I can't believe this is happening." Luna placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Trust your instincts, Jalen, and always remember, the truth has a way of surfacing." As she walked away, her words echoed in my mind. Here was an unexpected ally in my corner, guiding me to confront the reality I had been trying to avoid. It was another week of restless nights. With each revelation, the ground beneath me felt more and more unstable. But if I was to find the whole truth, I knew I had to keep digging. Remembering an old phone Serafina discarded a while back, I decided to see if it held any clues. But my tech skills were laughable, and I needed help. Enter Zeke, my childhood friend and a wizard with electronics. Zeke had been my go-to guy for any tech-related issues, from setting up my home theater to fixing computer glitches. I trusted him, and right now I needed someone on my side. Hesitatingly, I recounted the events of the past weeks to him. Zeke listened intently, his usually jovial face replaced by a solemn expression. "Let's see what we can find," he said, taking the phone from me. Within minutes, he managed to boot it up and bypass the security lock. "Let's check the messaging apps," he suggested, and there they were, a flood of messages between Serafina and Drax. I braced myself for the worst as we started scrolling through the conversation threads. The earlier messages were casual, discussing college memories and current life updates. But as time went on, the tone shifted. They began sharing dreams, fears, and secret desires. Then came the messages that felt like punches to my gut. Drax. "Every night with you feels like a stolen moment. I wish we didn't have to hide." Serafina. "Me too. It's hard pretending, especially with Jalen. I wish things were different." Drax. "Someday, we won't have to sneak around. We can be together, openly, without any fears." Serafina. "That's the dream, Drax. Just hold on a little longer." The screen blurred as tears welled up in my eyes. Zeke put a comforting hand on my back. "I'm so sorry, man," he whispered. The messages painted a clear picture. Their relationship was deeper and more entangled than I had ever imagined. The woman I had pledged my life to was dreaming of a future with another man. Edit. I'm at a loss for words. This feels like a cruel joke. Zeke has been a pillar of support, and I'm thankful for that. But the pain of these revelations is unbearable. To everyone sharing their stories and advice, thank you. I'm processing all of this slowly. I'll keep you updated. The fallout was swift and intense. I had imagined confronting Serafina immediately, but the weight of my discovery kept me paralyzed with pain. Maybe it was that hesitation that gave her the upper hand. It began subtly. Things would be out of place around the house. Personal items disappeared and then mysteriously reappeared days later. "Jalen," she'd coo, "you're becoming so forgetful. Maybe you need to see someone, get some rest." Then came the gatherings. At family dinners or outings with friends, she'd laughingly recount tales of my supposed lapses in memory or bouts of paranoia. "You won't believe what Jalen did the other day," she'd start, her stories making me sound unhinged and delusional. One evening, I overheard her talking to her sister on the phone. "I'm really worried about Jalen," she whispered, her voice dripping with fake concern. "He's been acting so strange lately, snooping around and accusing me of the wildest things. I think he might be having a breakdown." Soon, friends and family were looking at me differently. The hushed conversations, the pitying glances. I felt like a pariah in my own life. The more she twisted reality, the more I questioned my sanity. Maybe I was wrong. Perhaps those messages were innocent. Could the late-night meetings have been harmless? Desperation led to self-doubt. The gaslighting was working. There were moments I found myself staring in the mirror, wondering if the man looking back was indeed losing his mind. The worst part? The isolation. Friends, once close, now kept their distance. Conversations were brief, punctuated with awkward silences. Family gatherings became an exercise in endurance, with Serafina playing the concerned wife to perfection. The world as I knew it had shifted. Reality became a muddled, distorted reflection, and I was trapped in the center, struggling to find my footing. The weight of it all pressed down on me daily. Every whispered conversation, every sideways glance was a cruel reminder of the place I found myself in. Lost, doubting, and increasingly isolated. But I knew deep down that I couldn't live in this state of suspended disbelief forever. The answers, whatever they were, lay buried beneath layers of deceit. Determined, I decided to dig deeper into Serafina and Drax's history. I had to know how this began. A box of Serafina's old belongings, gathering dust in the attic, became my starting point. Sifting through it felt like intruding into another life, a life I was never meant to know. Between old journals and photo albums, a picture began to emerge. There was Serafina, noticeably younger, radiant with happiness beside Drax. They were in various places: beaches, mountaintops, city streets. Their smiles spoke of deep affection. I felt the pang of jealousy, a visceral reminder of the present. Then, buried among the pages of a diary, I found a folded letter, the edges yellowed with age. It was addressed to Serafina from Drax. Hesitatingly, I began to read. "Serafina, our love was never meant to be tangled in this web of family expectations and feuds. I'd give anything to be with you freely, without the shadows of our family's pasts looming over us. I still dream of the day we can be together, unburdened. Always yours, Drax." The pieces began to click into place. Further reading revealed a heartbreaking tale. Drax and Serafina had once been engaged, deeply in love, but torn apart due to a bitter family dispute. They had gone separate ways, nursing broken hearts, until their paths crossed again years later, after Serafina and I were married. The old flame, it seemed, had never died. They'd found solace in stolen moments, clinging to the memories of a love interrupted but never truly over. The realization was devastating. The foundation of my marriage was built on half-truths. The love I believed was uniquely ours was shadowed by a love story that predated our own. Edit. I'm shattered. Knowing the full truth somehow hurts more than the suspicion did. I feel like I've been living in someone else's love story, playing a part I never auditioned for. Thank you for being my sounding board, Reddit. Without you, I'd truly be alone in this. The house seemed eerily silent as I waited for Serafina to return from work. The emotions within me boiled, a mix of pain, anger, betrayal, and a fierce determination to face the truth head-on. She walked in, the clack of her heels on the wooden floor echoing through the hallway. Our eyes met, and the tension was palpable. Without uttering a word, I laid out the evidence before her. The photos, the messages, the letter from Drax. She scanned them briefly, then met my gaze with an icy, emotionless stare. There was no hint of the woman I once knew, the woman I'd pledged my heart to. This was someone else. "You've been busy," she remarked, her voice dripping with disdain. "Why, Serafina? Why all of this? Was there ever any truth to our love, to our life together?" She let out a derisive chuckle. You were the safe choice, Jalen. Steady, reliable, predictable. But passion? Love? Those were always reserved for Drax. You were just convenient." Her words were like sharp daggers, each one cutting deeper than the last. My mind raced, trying to grapple with the cruelty of her confession. "So, all those years, our memories, the vows, all lies?" I asked, my voice shaking. She shrugged. "Sometimes we make choices out of necessity, not desire." I felt a rush of anger, my vision blurring with tears. I deserved the truth, Serafina. I deserved love, genuine love, not this twisted game you've been playing. She smirked. "Life isn't fair, Jalen. You played your part and I played mine. It's time to move on." The coldness in her ease, the lack of remorse, it all hit me like a ton of bricks. This wasn't the Serafina I fell in love with, or maybe I'd never really known her at all. Leaving Chicago wasn't a fresh start. It was an attempt to escape the constant reminders of betrayal that seemed to lurk in every corner. I found myself on a highway heading to Seattle, not because it beckoned with promise, but because it was distant and unfamiliar. Each mile was a step away from what was, but not necessarily towards anything better. Seattle's gray skies did little to lift my spirits. Instead, they reflected the turmoil inside. I rented a small, dim-lit apartment away from the heart of the city. Its cold, undecorated walls mirrored the emptiness I felt. No warm welcome, just a space devoid of memories. I avoided contact as much as possible. The outside world seemed to move in vibrant colors while my existence faded into shades of gray. The laughter and joy of strangers felt alien, almost mocking. Meals were mechanical, eat to live, not live to eat. Sleep, when it came, was filled with dreams of confrontation, of seeking answers, of waking up to find it was all a nightmare. But each morning, reality reasserted itself with a cruelty that was unyielding. The faces at the local convenience store, the bus driver, the few coworkers I interacted with, they all became blurred images in the background of a life that felt more like mere existence. Connection seemed pointless. After all, the deepest connection I'd ever had was built on deception. Days turned into weeks, then months. The pain didn't fade. It merely settled, like a shadow I couldn't shake off. I stopped trying to outrun it, instead surrendering to its omnipresence. Edit. I wish I could tell you all that things got better, that there's a light at the end of this tunnel. But truth be told, right now, it feels never-ending. I read every message, every piece of advice, and while I appreciate them, the void remains. Thank you for listening, Reddit.